So my name's Emma Rose. I'm currently the Head of Strategy at HSBC in the UK. I've been with the group for about 9 years and I've held a whole range of positions over that time, mostly in business management or strategy execution. And prior to that I was working for a management consultancy in Australia actually, where we helped customers develop growth strategies and streamline their business. It's incredibly difficult, I think, would be my first observation. It's difficult to do well and it's difficult to do at pace. I think where most strategies fail is that they either haven't considered the full spectrum of end users that are affected by the strategic plan that you're developing, or it isn't communicated succinctly. I think a lot of what we do, particularly at HSBC, is a highly complex and matrixed environment. It's very difficult to make sure that the strategic decisions we're making consider everybody who's affected, but most importantly that it's communicated in a way that resonates with the people that you expect to make the change. My number one would be communication. I think, a strategy is only as good as the piece of paper it's written on unless it's communicated effectively. And I think, communication first and foremost has to come from the leaders of the organisation. If the senior leaders or the management team don't buy into the strategy, it's very difficult to get other colleagues within the firm to follow that strategy and to change in the way that you need them to. So communication is absolutely key, and with that it has to be simple. I think in developing a strategic plan we do a huge amount of analytical research and really kind of far-reaching analysis. I think it's our job to put that into a story that the business understands where we are today, the reason we need to change, what will happen if we don't, and really try and get the buy-in before we start implementation. We've tried to do a number of obviously change projects within my time at HSBC that are both impacting the organisation structure, so individuals that work for the company, but also process technologies and more on the system side. I think certainly with the organisation change, just in terms of roles, responsibilities and structure, a lot of what we do is globally driven, and actually getting 63 markets to understand the need to align to that global model is very difficult. I think one thing certainly that I've observed in dealing with so many different countries with varying complexity and needs and shapes and sizes is to make sure that each one of them is considered individually and to be flexible. Your global strategy or your blueprint isn't going to fit everybody equally, and there has to be some there's a little bit of flexibility in the system to make sure it's tailored for the needs of those individuals you're deploying it to. The number one failure point that I've observed, communication obviously is key, a really succinct story that is told by the leaders first and foremost to try and get that buy-in and make sure that everybody is pointed in the right direction. The other one I think is rigidity, or just a lack of flexibility in strategic planning. I think we all like to have a fairly long time horizon for strategic plans, but it's equally as important to have checkpoints along the way and to be flexible. I think particularly in banking and particularly in the market we operate in, things change, and it's a very dynamic environment. I think if we were to implement the plan we'd written even 3 years ago, we'd be on the wrong path. So I think that the ability to really kind of flex the plan and make sure you've got checkpoints, you've really clearly established the KPIs or the outcomes you're driving for, and keep check on them to make sure that the changes or the implementation is delivering the right outcomes for the business. In a leadership team, to lead from the front, I think symbols are really important, and so is culture in developing strategy, but also most importantly I think the execution of that strategy. The colleagues in the firm are looking to leaders for changing their behaviours and to understand why we need to change, and also for them to change first. So I think those symbols about how they spend their time, how they communicate, what they say, what they do, really has such a significant impact in the ability to affect change. And without getting that layer right, I think it's very difficult to implement anything. So I think The burning platform is important and energy is important. I think so many strategic plans just run out of gas halfway through, or kind of towards the end certainly. And that pace of change and that energy is a really important factor to maintain, to make sure that you see a plan through, or that you affect the change that you're looking for. It's very difficult to do. There are competing priorities in an organisation. There's many strategies at play actually, depending on what part of the business you sit in. And so making sure that that energy is maintained and that people are continually reminded of why you're doing what you're doing is a really important factor.